Shalom, Israel. Shalom. I was asked something, man, and I wanted to go ahead and address it because it just made me think of something else. Somebody had asked me about head covering. According to the New Testament in 1 Corinthians, Paul says that you must uncover your head when you pray, you prophesy, because if you don't, you dishonor your head, and the head of man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God, and however that goes in the New Testament. Now, the person that asked me that understands that I don't follow the New Testament, but he says I would still be dishonoring my head by not uncovering my head, when my head in this sense would be whoever I deem to be the Messiah or the Most High himself or whatever. Basically, I'm dishonoring somebody by not uncovering my head when I pray and I prophesy still. So why don't I uncover my head? Well, the first answer was obviously that is a New Testament train of thought. That's not found anywhere in the Torah. In fact, you find the contrary in the Torah when you go to Exodus 28 and Leviticus 16. Within the first 4 verses, you'll see that a turban is something that the priests were commanded to wear when they entered into the temple and were going to conduct sacrifices in the service and different things of that nature. So that's a part of the priestly attire. So it can't be dishonoring the head by wearing a turban. And we see the fashion in which the ancients would wear a turban. There's different ways that people choose to wear them today in order to honor the New Testament in Paul's writings, but that's something completely different. But that's not the reason I'm making this video. We can go back and forth about that. But here's what's interesting about Paul saying that, what I just realized. Paul only said that in the letter to the Corinthians. He didn't say that in the letter to Galatians or Philippians or whatever else he wrote. He didn't say that anywhere else, not in the letter to the Hebrews or anybody else. He only said that in the book of Corinthians. So I want you to think about it in this manner. If you were a Corinthian yourself and you received your letter the same way the Galatians and everybody else received their letters, and we all come to meet up one day. We all come to meet up years after receiving Paul's letters to hold service together. Everybody else, except for the Corinthians, come with their head covered. And they've been praying and prophesying this entire time with their head covered because they never received the same letter that the Corinthians received. You have to remember, these letters were sent out to different places. They all didn't get the same thing. And they all weren't talking about the same thing either. So this entire time, the Galatians and Philippians and Hebrews have been praying and prophesying with their head covered, but the Corinthians haven't. My point is if you're going to dishonor Christ, if you're going to dishonor God by having your head covered when you pray and prophesy, don't you think Paul would have told everybody that? Why would he just tell the Corinthians that and not that to everybody else? That's a very huge issue. I'm going to dishonor Christ or dishonor God when I have my head covered when I pray. You chose to tell the Corinthians that, but no one else. I mean, that just doesn't make much sense to me. That's pretty interesting in itself. Why would he only tell the Corinthians that and nobody else? Because as I just said, according to the Torah, the priests would have their head covered when they did pray and prophesy. So anybody else who would read that would think it would be okay. But they wouldn't know about Paul's letter to the Corinthians because he didn't say this in every other letter that he wrote. But that's what I just thought about. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting within itself. You can take it for what it is, but that's why I don't uncover my head when I pray and I prophesy. But till the next time, Israel, shalom.